Okay, so just finishing off the little ear, just very gently. I'm going to go back to my grey, my 270, because I really don't want it to stand out too much. I'm just going to get a couple of little tiny hairs in there. A couple in here, let them come over the top of the outline. And then I might use my 177, which is my deep dark brown, and just go between, because it's quite a nice dark colour, just going to go between some of the hairs there, just to make them stand out a bit. Okay, and go back to my grey again and just pop some more of those in there. It's always a process of tiny little tweaks, just a couple in there, a couple in there, a couple around there. Okay, and I think for now that is done. I'm just going to get a couple of little hairs in this side. Okay, so we are going to now crack on with the nose, because once we've got the nose in place, there's just a little hair there. Once we've got the nose in place, we can start to do all the hairs that are around the muzzle. But in order to be able to sort of see exactly what direction they go in, it's best to get the nose in first. So just like with the ear, I'm going to go straight into the nostrils. It's kind of like a heart shape actually. This left-hand nostril, and I'm literally just going to punch it in with really, really dark black. And same again here. All of this area there is all nice and dark. And we know we've got this area here. This is the top of the nose. Let's just start to get a bit of shaping in. This is the top of the nose. And that sort of comes down to there. We want to try and find the bottom of the nose as well. So the bottom of the nose is roughly there. And then you've got an area. So just to help myself, I'm going to look at they've got some grey areas just to the bottom of the nostril there, and I'm just going to pop that in with the 181, which is the nice grey colour. I think that's called Payne's Grey, the 181. I'm just going to sort of shade that in a bit, and then this is purely just a fact-finding mission, just to make sure that I know where everything is. So you've got a couple of little hairs just there. And then a couple of hairs that come over there. I'm just finding my way into the nose really. The sort of the nostril comes to there, but this is like a little bit of dark fur really that comes there. And then sort of comes up in that direction, up there. Okay. Let's have a look. So I've still got this nice grey in my hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to colour it in. Nothing more simple than that really. Just need a base layer. We need to get the little nosy in. It sort of comes, this bit of grey that kind of comes down here. And then up here. That's that sort of whole sort of nose area. This is quite stark what I've done here, so I'm going to come over it with some hairs in a minute, but for now that gives us a nice little base layer to work from. And so it's not too detailed, we just want to make sure that our nostrils are super dark, because that's what will give it the 3D effect. Okay, so those are nice and dark. Might actually use my cotton bud for this. Just going to eat into that line. I've made quite a distinct line at the top there, and it doesn't really need to be that distinct. It was just more to sort of give me an idea of what goes where. So push that all around. Okay, so that's starting to look like the general shape of the nose. With this 181 again, I'm just going to there's a little crease in the nose that sort of comes over here and over there. So I just want to make sure I don't lose that. There's a little mark just there. Okay, I'm going to get my black in now and punch back in those details, because obviously I've made it quite sort of milky almost by pushing it all in. But that's really the sort of the shape of the nose there. There's a little dark, couple of little dark bits at the bottom. This bit here, there's like a little marks within the nose. That bit there is a bit dark, but it doesn't go sort of straight across like I had it. And then as it comes up and out. Might use my 181 again, so just above the little right hand nostril there. I'm just going to use a very dark grey, which is the 181. And then this whole section here, between the dark of the nostril and that little mark that I made, that's all sort of like a dark blue colour. And then we've got, I'm going to put these back in. So tiny little hairs there. This is the 270 I'm using now. I'm just popping this in there. And then we've got a little light bit just at the top there. It's all about doing your little lights, your little darks. That's what creates the structure. That's what creates the 3D effect. So we've got quite a nice light bit just up here. And then a few little shading bits. And then I'm just going to dot around a couple of little light bits. In fact, actually at this bottom bit here, it almost goes a bit pinky. So I might go and use the 192, which I think we used in the eye. I'm just going to give it a little bit of flavour. Imagine just putting a little bit more salt in the cooking pot. Just gives it a bit of oomph. Excuse me. And then I'm also going to bring in the 175. So this must be the dark sepia because it's got more of a brown hint to it. And I'm just going to go over a few sections with it. The bottom here. Okay. And then I'm going to go back to my favourite grey, which is the 270, and just pop in those tiny little hairs, excuse me, that are at the bottom of the nose there. And a couple of the little sort of dots and dashes you see. You can be a bit circumspect. I mean, you might have a bogey. You don't necessarily want to draw that. Little highlight there. A couple of little dots to show where the lighter sections are, but you have also got a bit of a lighter section here. And my head is literally just as I'm talking, but my head is going 90 into the dozen between the reference photo and what I'm drawing. And then we know that here there's some lighter hairs that sort of come out. There's a little soft section there where it gets a little bit lighter, and I know that I've put a nice blue under there. So when I smooth over with the grey, that makes quite a nice sort of feeling. I'll do the same again this side as well. And then that kind of comes around there. I don't know what that little lip is there I think it's just a little bit of wet fur and it doesn't quite make sense, so I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to pop it around there. To me that looks a bit more realistic. So there's just a couple of sections where there's just a little bit of blue, like I was just saying there with the darker blue that I used. I might just pop in a couple of lighter blues. So this is the 140, and while I'm there I might stick a tiny little bit in the eye, just for the reflection, just gives it a bit of va-va-voom. And then just where, you know, some like nice little pretty colours like this can be just where the blue sky is hitting, you know, the surface and sort of reflecting off. We can dull that back down again. It's a bit blue at the moment, but it does look quite nice. So I can get a bit carried away with it. I might go back over it with the 181, which is the Payne's Grey, and just knock it back a little bit. So it's kind of there, but not there too much. I might leave it a little bit more exposed on the areas where I can see there's a bit more of a highlight. So, but in the other areas, just sort of knock it back with the Payne's Grey. That looks quite good to me. That's fine for now. And then on top of that nice little blue that we've got showing, let's just do a couple of little highlights. Okay, that's all right, I think. Let's just dot it into place so it stays there. And I think now we can crack on with the rest of the muzzle around it. So now we're going to do this section here to the left. I'm literally going to be using as a base layer. I can see lots of nice browns in there. So using my 177, my nice soft but dark and deep brown, and just create a base layer to about here. I'm ignoring all the whiskers at the moment. That's some fun we can have later. So this section here, you can see that underneath and between all the furs, that's the sort of colour that you see underneath. Okay, because the muzzle is very different from the sort of the whiter fur that goes the other side of it. So that also helps make him start to come alive a little bit when you start to fill in areas like that. So I've applied a very, very light layer. And I'm just squashing it in really, but it is very, very light. So I might go as far as to just give it another coating. Because I do really like the richness of this brown. And I think it will sit nicely under everything. So again, I'm going to scrunch it in. Okay, so that's a really nice deep base layer, and I'm loving the contrast between the muzzle area and the hair to the left of it. Obviously that will dull back a bit when we start adding some other hairs, but for now I'm really pleased with that. The next thing I'm going to do is start, I was going to say start texturizing with the 280, but actually it's not really showing much. So I think I'm going to, let's have a look. So I think I'm going to use the grey, and what I'm going to do with the grey is just sort of plot in the direction of the little furs. And then we're going to, I'm going to do all of the hairs the same sort of tone with this same grey, and then start to make some darker than the others. So I can sort of see that they're got lots of little lines that come in that sort of direction, almost like a V. That's difficult because obviously you've got the whiskers as well that are sitting on top, so sometimes it can be difficult to see. So we've got some there. So I want to keep this quite nice and dark because there's a nice sort of depthy bit there. So I might not go too far in. Maybe do a couple of little, tiny little hairs in there, but not much. And then pop those, pop those under. Got some hairs that are coming this way. Always look at the direction that they're going in, especially these sorts of areas, because they can be really quite complex. The hairs go in lots of different directions. And then this is where the real sort of whiter area starts. So we'll leave that for the moment. Okay, I'm going to use my black just purely because I absolutely love the sort of the depthy bit there. I'm sure there's a better term for it, but that's kind of how I'm feeling with the depthy bit there. And I also want to put a couple in between the hairs there, and also notice just underneath and to the side of this nose, just here, just look for little areas where you get little pockets of darkness. So I'm going to start popping those, and this is just the 199 that I'm using at the moment. And I've actually seen in front of this eye here, there's a little bit of blue, which I think might be quite nice as well. So I'm just going to tap a tiny bit of blue in there, just to give him a bit of oomph. He likes that, he's quite happy with that. There we go. I might just dull down a little bit. There we go. Yeah. Okay. And actually this bit here, this is the grumpy bit again. Lost a little bit there. Let's just get a couple of, yeah. A couple of darker bits in there. I do actually have a pastel brush somewhere rather than blowing on it, which is not good. I'm going to blow it for now and get pastel brush to flick that off out the way. I'm going to have a little look now at the nose, just do a couple of little dots on top there. That makes a nice little highlight. Okay, so I am also going to use the black. So this darkness of the nostril, there's also quite a dark bit here. And then that was the black. I'm then going to go over with the Payne's grey, just because it is a little, so it's almost like skin. There's sort of like a grey skin, just a couple of lights. And by so doing, I've messed up some of the nice light hairs that we had coming from the nostril there. So let's stroke those back in with a white this time. Just because I've got quite a lot of pastel now flying around there. Sometimes, you know, when you want to do some peak highlights, you do have to just be brave and go for the lightest white, because there's lots of other colours there that are going to be sort of mixing around with it. Okay, so obviously we've got some whiskers still to do, which I'm not going to do until all of this section is done, because I'm going to scrape through some whiskers, hopefully. Oh, I think while I've got the black in my hand, this little section here is quite dark, because of course this is where the mouth is. Got a really nice dark mouth here. And this is obviously where it starts to join the rest of, got a bit here where the sort of the whole muzzle joins the rest of the body. But this bit here is directly on from the mouth. So I'm going to get the black in there just to give that some structure and shape. And then I'm just going to carry on with the 270 and do some little grey hairs. The hairs that are going to be sitting underneath the whiskers. And then as it comes into the here, nice transition. Okay, yeah, I'm quite happy with that. A couple of little tweaks here and there. I might even get my on my white, because this, always think about where the light is hitting, and we do have a couple of nice little lighter hairs just at the top there. So let's pop those in. They might need knocking back in time. We will see. Just a couple here and there. I might even do some on the nose there. It's like the light hitting it. You can make a few things up as long as you sort of roughly know what you're doing. I'm going to, this section here is actually sort of furry bits. So I'm just going to do a couple of little dots with the grey, which is the 270, just so it doesn't look odd. Bring that in there. Okay, yeah, I'm happy with that for now. A couple of little, I always say I'm happy with something, then I carry on. That is the nature of it. A couple more little hairs there. But just be careful that you don't obliterate all that nice sort of depth that you've achieved there. Okay, I think next we're going to go on to the mouth. Right, okay, so now we're going to have a look at the little mouth. But before I do that, I've just been looking at him, and I think it looks like he's got bogey. So I'm just going to get rid of that a little bit. I think that looks better, don't you? Okay, so while I've got the black in my hand, I'm going to look at his little mouth. And there's an area there that's roughly the dark bit. And then you've got sort of an area here that's slightly darker. So at the moment, all I am doing is fact finding. Working out where everything is. Okay, so this is a section here that we're going to be working on. Oh, he's got a tiny little mark on there, hasn't he? I'm just popping things into place. I might just here, where we're going to have a couple of little hairy bits, but then you've got a bit of shading underneath the nose. I might just pop a couple of little black strokes in there. Okay, so for the mouth, for the bit that's, you know, sort of obviously this bit here, which is underneath, I think I am going to use a burnt sienna, which is the 283 by Faber-Castell. I'm just going to give it a very, very light going over with the burnt sienna. And then I'm going to use the 132 from Faber-Castell, which is a really nice pinky colour. I'm just going to mix it all in and see what it looks like, to be honest. It looks roughly right. So even in an area like this though, you still want to be looking at it and thinking, right, okay, where's the depth? Where do I need it to be darker? So I'm going to get the 181 that we were using earlier, and I'm just going to shade in this bit here, because this is darker and we really need this, because if we don't, it's going to look like it's all on one level. And we need the head to really pop forwards. So I'm just going to pop this through there. And I'm I'm going to put a little bit, well, just while I've got it in my hands, this is the Payne's Grey, the 181. Pop a little bit there. You could use the 177 there instead. It's slightly more browny in colour than blue. You can play around with it a bit. I'm only working very, very lightly. As you can see, I'm working with it on the side, just until I know that everything's in the right place. The other thing, so I've got this 177 in my hand now. The other thing I will do is, while I tend to sort of work while I've got something in my hand, I do look at my reference photo and think, right, where else does this colour occur? Just to make it a bit easier, really. So just like we did this side is going to sort of match up a little bit. So I used a base layer of this beautiful 177. We do have a lighter area there, as we do there, but I don't mind giving it a bit of a covering, because you know, we can go over it with lots of light thereafter. Okay, so that's good. So I'll probably just get a little bit of depth at the top there, underneath. Yeah, let's go for that. The other colour that we used in the eye might be quite useful here, and I dotted it around a bit. It's the 192. I don't know what it's called, but yeah, it's a nice colour. Nice sort of rich red, which I quite like. And then I might pop a little bit of it down the bottom here. A lot of what I do is trial and error. It's the only way you find out what colours work. You know, quite a lot of people get sort of hung up over using this colour and then that colour. And yes, to start with, that's understandable, but, you know, do play around with it. Particularly in the early stages, you know, your base layers and so on, while you've still got plenty of pastel matte left to play with. You know, you haven't filled in all the gaps. So I'm just scrubbing it in now with a cotton bud, because at the end of the day, we need to get it, sort of a fairly rich colour there. There we go. Okay, so what shall we do now? Right, okay, I'm going to try this colour again. It didn't really show up earlier, but the 280, which is a nice, it's probably a raw umber or a bistro or something. It is a nice colour, and then when we add some whites on top, we'll just give it a bit of a warm glow, because you have got quite a lot of warmth here in the muzzle area. So let's give it a bit of oomph there. You've also got a few bits as they come up here. Again, while it's in my hand, I'm just popping it in. Okay, very nice. Right, let's have a look. So I think the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use the 103, because you've got a lot of cream in here. And I do think it's important to have a bit of warmth. So I'm just creating little furry bits there and here. You know, we'll be lightening it in a minute, so I'm not worried about that. Nice little lights there. And because we did use the grey earlier, the 270, I'm going to crack on with that as well, just so it's kind of got a bit of an even feel. Just sharpening it. Actually, before I do that, I can just see, so I'm using the 181, where did that go? Disappeared. Here we go. I could just see a bit of a line here, and I don't like it. If I see something I don't like, I get rid of it before I forget. And kind of gently oozes into there. There we go. So while I've got the little grey in my hand, I'm going to just do a couple of little dotty bits on the nose there. Missed a little bit of light. And maybe a couple of bits there. Even this little line adds a bit of character, gives him a slightly grumpy look. Okay, so I've got this 270 and I'm just popping some hairs in. It's as simple as that. So we've got the nice base layer, so we're still leaving space for the hairs. And then we've got a couple of chunky bits there, which again, although we're giving him a slightly blow-dried look, I would think round his muzzle it is a little bit chunkier. Don't know why I think that, but... And then we've got a couple of little bits there. Kind of comes down here. Now at the moment I'm doing all of this the same tone, but I think I will come back in a minute and differentiate between this area and this area just a little bit more. It's very, very early on still on this particular section. So in that case, I think here I might just knock this back a bit. So this is the 280 that I'm using. So here I'm just knocking this back a little bit, just glazing over it, or using my hand to the side, and a little bit here, and that will do. And then I'm going to use the 177, which is a nice depthy colour. And I'm going to use it in between the little hairs, just to show a bit of difference. So we've got some sort of darker brown bits in between the hairs here. And then in here. I'm also going to use this 175, so I think this is the dark sepia, so it's a really nice dark brown, just to add some really dark bits through here. And then this little bit here has gone a little bit blue in tone, so I'm going to use a grey, flick a couple of little greys in, and then again the 181 that we've been using, because that's a nice depth grey, I'm going to flick a couple of those in, because we want the feeling that there's a bit of depth right underneath the nose, just along to here. And then a little bit under there. There we go, all good. Right, I'm now going to use my grey for this little mouth. Now when you look at an area like this, it can be tempting to think, oh, that's just sort of all the same tone. But if you look really closely, you'll see a couple of areas. Obviously this bit here is underneath and this bit here is to the front. Only very slightly, but it's those slight changes of tone that are really important when it comes to hyperrealism. And just gives that sort of 3D look. Just going to pop a couple of hairs over as well. Got a little whisker there. So from here, let's have a look. So I've got some hairs kind of coming out from there, and we've got some hairs coming out from here. But yeah, we've just got that. We don't want it to be too light. We just certainly don't want it to be as light as some of the hairs that we've got going on here. But we want to just showcase a little bit, like the light is just hitting it. And then by so doing, we're showing that this mouth goes like that, just like an eye would, you know, where it sinks in at the bottom and it sinks in at the top, but towards the front, it's just hitting the light a little bit more. It's quite simple drawing, really, when you think about it. Pop that under there, so we're just darkening this up. There we go, and that's starting to look like a little mouth. I'm going to get some grey in here. We've got some grey going on. I think I did those little hairs a little bit. I think this section still is the mouth. Mouth comes down a little bit. Mouth does sort of come down there. So I'm using this grey as like a transitional colour from the sort of the mid-tones and the highlights there, and then we're going to do some darks there where it sits underneath the mouth. You can have like a little transitional colour there. Something's not right, don't know what it is yet. Let's have a look. So I think this needs to be darkened down here, so I'm just using the 192, so it's that lovely red that we had. I'm just kind of obliterating a little bit of what I've done because it just doesn't look quite right. And then I'm going to go for the 177, again that's a great depthy colour. Under here. And actually, do you know what, I think because I've mucked it up a little bit, I am going to go back in with my 199, so my black. Let's get a little bit of that depth back. So underneath here and under there. Okay, and then we're going to get this a little bit darker as well. Let's see what that looks like when we've pressed it in with a paper stump. Blend it in slightly. Okay. Yeah, that's looking better. The other thing that we need to do, which may be what's making it not look as good, is that we need a bit of depth just on this underlip, the bit before it kind of comes into the light. So let's do that. That looks a bit better. Okay. And then let's do, so we did a little bit of a highlight. Let's do another little highlight there. Very, very subtle. In fact, I might do it with the creams. This is the 103. That might look quite nice. Okay, I think that's quite cute. While I've got the 103 in my hand, I can just see a couple of really nice little hairy bits to the right hand side of his nose. And then I'm going to switch to grey because this part under the right nostril is a little bit cooler in tone. Okay, and I think that's that for that area. What I want to do now is, I think let's do this under section. Let's see where we get to from there. Okay, so how to approach this. So we've got some hairs that come this way. So I'm just going straight in with the grey, only because I need to know where everything is, the direction of the fur. We have a beautiful white here actually. So as this comes down here, this area here is all quite nice and light. So just for now, I'm going to pop it in white, just so it reminds me that this bit here is a nice little light bit, and actually similar sitting underneath. At the moment I'm just ignoring the whiskers. Need to do that with a steady hand, possibly in the morning. Okay, so that's popping that in there. I'm going to go in with the grey just as a base layer. This is the 233. Just going to pop that in because we don't want it to sit in front too much. We do want it to sort of sit back. And while I've got it in my hand, I'm just going to flick it into there. Okay, that's looking all right. I'm just going to do this bit here as well. So this is the 177 that I'm using, this nice depthy brown. And I just want to get this bit in here. So that's a nice dark bit there, then we've got that there, and then this kind of comes into the light really. Nice warm bit there. Okay, yeah, he's starting to make sense now. Great, so let's pop a couple of those in. They come there, so look at the direction of the little fur. So the fur as it comes through here is going off to the left, just gently. And getting these bits right around areas such as eyes and mouth and noses. Really what adds to the character. And I'm looking forward to hopefully doing some more videos and tutorials and zooms where I really go into character and we take animals that we look at lots of different reference photos of them and we really bring that character to life in our portrait. I do absolutely love it, and I get to this stage and then I just get this lovely feeling. It's just, he's looking really cute and fall a little bit in love with him. Right, okay, so I'm going to now look at my really dark grey with the 181, which I'm pretty sure is the Payne's grey. So I'm just going to add, so underneath here, it needs to go darker again, and then we've got some more grey under here. Okay, and then actually what I haven't put in yet, so the mouth sort of comes to here. And the mouth also, so it comes to there. I think I've probably done a little bit too much white there. So I'm going to knock it back with the 199 just to get that depth back again, no other reason. So that we're kind of showing where the mouth is, and the sort of like the little shaded areas around where the mouth sits. Okay, that's looking all right. Let's pop it. This is the black. While it was in my hands, I'm just instinctively looking for some areas that need deepening in tone. Okay. Right, I'm going to go in with my 177 here, which is the brown, and just flick out a couple of little brown bits. Okay, right. Now I'm going to get my cotton stamp. Still the same one I've been using, doesn't matter if it's got pigment on from before. All we're doing is creating a base layer. I'm a lot more particular as we get to higher levels on the pastel mat. But for now we're just creating a bit of colour for us to work on really. Okay, I'll just zoom out a fraction just so you can see. That's it. Okay. Do allow yourself some thinking time as well. I do find sometimes when I'm teaching, I can end up rushing a bit in order to kind of quickly explain it and quickly get on with it, but there is absolutely no rush. And we want the best possible art. And if that means taking a bit of time and tweaking things, then so be it. Lovely, okay. Right. And I say lovely, it's not me being big-headed, it's me chatting to Ollie and telling him he's lovely. He's a little cutie. I'm dreadful. Every night before I go to sleep, if I've got a work in progress on the way, I always have to come in and look at them again and say goodnight. And they become little beings. Right, so we got some, sorry, I've just completely got sidetracked. I'm using just the ordinary white, the 101, and I was just looking at some of the really peak highlights. Obviously we've got the whiskers which we're going to put on, but we're not going to put those on until all of this is done. We're going to kind of cut and scrape through. Do I want to put some white in here? I think I probably do actually, even if I then blend it in to make it a bit darker. So let's have a look. So I'm just concentrating on the reference photo and the direction of the fur. Okay, let's pop a few in here. So this is still just the white, and it might be that this is too light. But we do have quite a nice light bit here actually, so where the sunlight's hitting here, but it's also hitting the part just above it. And you can probably see what I'm doing is I'm just creating a bit of a pattern. It's almost like a Y that I'm creating there. And then while I've got that, I'm going to just do a couple of little nostril-y bits. Dotty bits in here. I'm afraid I don't have very technical terms. Nostril-y bits and dotty bits. And we're going to just... And you will find after you've been sort of working for a while on a piece, you will have to go back over, because pastel flies through the air and lands on it apart from anything else. And it also, I think it settles into the pastel mat. So at the end of a painting, you know, do be prepared to sort of have to go in and darken your darks and lighten your lights sort of thing. Okay, just a couple of little dots there. Oh, that looks nice, I like that. Okay. That makes him look like he's got a moustache. Oh, Ollie. Ollie Wally. Right. Going to use my paper stump now and just blend that in. It was a little bit too stark, made him look like he had a moustache. Just going to knock back a few of these as well. These are quite light. I'm just going to press them in. I want them to stay there rather than scrubbing them around. Okay, now then what else do we want to do? So I might go in, so I can just notice we just need a little bit more depth in this section here. Just going to see what the 280, sort of a sharp, dark 280 in there looks like. That's better. And then hide some of the bases of the hairs. Okay. Yep. And then I might go over some of these whites, glaze over with the 103, so it's a nice little cream colour. Okay, and then blend in while you've got it in your hand. I do love a small pencil. You can really kind of get in there. Okay. Right, now then, what are we going to do with this underneath bit, do you think? Well, I think we need, I think we'll go dark to start with. So there's a section just in the middle here, not this bit because you've got a nice little light section there, but just underneath the mouth, a section that needs to be a bit darker in order to make it look like the chin sits back. So I'm just using the 181 to sort of create that. And then while I've got it there, I'm just creating a bit of shade in there and a bit of shade in there just to give it, that's better. Okay. And then I'm going to use the 270 to create this lighter area of hair. You don't want it too light, because obviously it's nowhere near as light as the little section here on top, but just light enough to show that it's kind of coming out from the very, very darkest bits under the chin. Now I can see that we need some hairs in here, so I'm using the 103 because they're nice creamy hairs. Just popping a few of those in. And then I'll probably do the same again the other side. And flicking a few across there. That looks quite cute. Okay, so I think that section there is done for now. I'm not going to worry too much about this just at the moment because I want to get all of this section done first. And obviously I want to save enough pastel mat so that I can get those whiskers in as well. So that's fine for now, and then we'll move on to this right hand side. Okay, so for this section here, this is really roughly where the little head joins the body. So I'm just going to pop that in so that I understand what section it is that I'm doing. I'm now using the 280, so it's not as dark as the 177 brown. It's a sort of a yellowy, warm brown, because this area to the right hand side of the face is actually really quite warm. So I'm just going to feel my way. You've got a couple of areas that are sort of darker there. A few in here. It comes up there. Gets a bit darker as it goes to the top, so I might use the 177 there. So you've got that in there. So just a bit darker at the top. It gives it a bit of definition as well. And while I am in that area and I can see it, I'm just going to make some of the little hairs there just stand out a bit more. Okay. This is the 103, so they're warm. It's a warm light. And I'm going to just pop that there so that you can kind of see where the side of the face begins and ends. Okay, so what am I going to do now? I think I'm just going to, I normally just do like a really basic base layer, but for some reason, I think probably because it's a nice light area, I'm feeling that it's right to do a bit more sort of texture for the base layer here. Go with your gut instinct. It's very often right. Just this section in here, I'm noticing a couple of little highlights that I've missed. I'm using the 270, the grey, so it's not super bright, but just a couple of sections there which are a bit lighter. This is all really warm, like the sun's hitting it, but we don't want it to look too different from what we've got going on the other side. So let's just put a little bit of the grey in just to get a bit of continuity. But let's just pop the paper stump. Start scrubbing it in. Okay, so that's quite a detailed base layer for me, but I quite like that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to be doing is coming out with the light. So literally just using a white, and I'm going to gently, with a nice sharp white, figure out the direction of the hair. It kind of comes from there up and over. Don't let me forget to do the whiskers. Just popping some down here. Right, okay. And then I'm just gonna make that even more of a highlight there. Oh, no, that's too much. I've really dug it in and got a really bright white there, but that just needs knocking back a bit. That's okay, that's all right. Let's do another one the other side. Make it match. Just a couple that are sort of brighter than any of the others, and just dot in the base of it. Okay. Right, let's have a look. Ollie, how are we doing? We're not too far off now, so I'm just going back to the white and I'm just popping, this is the section here where it kind of comes up. And then also you've got some here, actually it's not quite right, the line that I've done, but that's okay. Putting it right, most important. And then we've got some other little hairy bits there. And while I've got this white, I'm just looking, it's just instinctive. You know, just literally you've got something in your hand. Where else is there? Is there anywhere else that is lacking that you can use it? I do really like this nice depth area, so I don't want to go too mad there. Let's knock that back. Okay. So the only other thing I'm sort of thinking is that this section could just do with knocking back a bit. So I'm using a 177, which is the nice brown, and I just want to make a bit of a difference. It was looking a bit flat across the front there. So I'm just going to, if you think about the shape of his head, this would be a little bit further back than the bits over his eyes would be. It doesn't have to be much, but just knocking it back. I'm stroking the lines that I've got there, using it on the side, putting a couple of bits there. Okay, yeah, I'm pleased with that for now. I think what we'll do is leave it there, and then we will crack on with the rest of the body, and we'll do some final tweaking later once we've had a good look at it. Right, okay, so I've just noticed a little alteration I need to do. Just looking at the line that goes from here across there. I brought the mouth right round here, but actually when you look at it, there's a sort of a line that goes across there from about here. So just a very slight change there. Just going to plot that in. Okay, let's have a look. And obviously, I mean, we're going to be putting whiskers in on there, but I want it to be right before we do. So it kind of goes like that, and then as it comes in here, it sort of comes out. A couple of little there. So that was the 103, sorry, that got a bit carried away there. And now I'm using the white, which is the 101. And I'm just brightening up this area because it is actually really quite nice and bright where the sun's hitting it. And it kind of comes down here. And then there. It's this line here that I'm not quite sure about, so it sort of comes possibly there. And then those go across there. I think by the time we've got the whiskers in, that will start to make a little bit more sense. Okay, right. Let's have a good look at the fur. Okay, so I think the first thing I'm going to do is, so let's zoom out a minute. Oh, that's in. Let's just take this section here. I'm just using my 177, which is that nice warm but dark brown. I'm using it as a very gentle base layer in the same sort of general direction as the fur. Obviously it goes like this way. I'm not aiming to fill the tooth, I'm just literally looking to get a couple of shadows in there, up to about there. And it sort of comes to here as well. There's a sort of, you can see underneath the furs, there's quite sort of a browny tinge to it. Again, I'm ignoring the whiskers completely. Now I want to have a look at this area here, which again we're looking at the colour that's actually in between the furs. So I'm using the 233. I'm not sure if that's right yet, but I think I'll use this as a base colour, and then I think once I've put the hairs on, I then might have to go in between some of those hairs with the 181, which is a little bit darker. So this is just to give it a little bit of a coating. You still want the white hairs to really sort of stand out. And then this section here downwards is a little bit darker again, isn't it? So, so those come out that way, and then these sort of come here. This is just to sort of remind me that there's a change of direction here in the fur. Blend it into the area above. I might do a couple of little strokes again while I've got this. It's the 177, the dark brown that I've got in my hand at the moment. Just doing a couple of little dark strokes, just to give it a bit of flavour. I may even just pop a few little browns up here, not too many, but just a few little strokes. Being quite loose with it. So that was the 177. Now I'm going to go on to the Payne's Grey. I know I said I'd get the light furs in, and I will. I just want to pop a few using the 181 on its side, and I'm just stroking in on the base layer. I'm still leaving quite a lot of space. I just want to get a bit of a covering going on. Okay, so I'm going to treat myself to a fresh cotton bud now. And I'm going to scrub it in. I think I'm just going to move that so it's a bit better. And then, okay. That's cool. Okay. Right. So scrubbing that in. Quite therapeutic, this process. So just looking for a base layer that's got a bit of texture in it, because obviously those are some of the shapes that we've made. But also this base layer does show me the direction that the fur's going in, which is helpful when you come to put the hairs on top. And by moving this in into the little grooves in the pastel mat now, it means that the white of the fur that I put on top is going to show up more, rather than mixing in with loads of loose pigment on the top of the paper. Just in there. Okay, so that's a good base layer. Now I'm going to start getting some fur in. So I'm going to sharpen my grey 270. Get that nice and sharp. And I'm just going to start stroking some hairs in, creating like this. They're almost like little Ys. Let them overlap each other. This section here is a slightly greyer fur, and then slightly below it is the warmer coloured fur. And it kind of comes in a sweeping motion. Really take note of the length of the fur as well. Turning my pencil over to keep it sharp for a bit longer. And just notice how I'm sort of overlapping these strokes. It's still early, I've still got several layers left yet to go, so you can afford to be a little bit free with it. Okay. And this section here is quite dark. Let's have a look, see, that comes to there. It should only really go to about there, and then this should be lighter. Okay. And I'm not worried so much about this looking like it, I mean, I still want to do that a little bit, but I want this to look like it's underneath the head. But once we get the whiskers in, that will make it much more apparent. Okay, so that's enough for now. Actually, I'm going to just push those through and over the sort of browner area. You know, they're not very sharp or fine at the moment, but that's fine because this is just one up from the base layer, so we're not expecting them to be. Now then, the furs that sit on top of that brown, it's not too dissimilar to the grey. Let's have a look. I'm just going to see what this looks like. It might be wrong, but the 180 just gives a little bit of a warm colour. It's a nice sort of burnt yellow colour. I want it to give a little bit of a glaze. And while I've got it, actually, I might just, again, I'm always tweaking, do a little bit on the nose. It's actually a really beautiful colour. Let's pop a couple of little warm bits. We can just play with a few bits. Just a few little changes of colour can sometimes make a really big difference. And I try and do it in the areas where I think, you know, if it was sunny, the sun would be sort of shining and making it sparkle. So let's put a couple in here. And then just let's make up a few. Let's pop a few in here. Couple of nice ones in there. You can really go to town with it, really, if you want to. There's this is quite white, this section here, but actually it's really quite warm. You've got a lot of light hitting this particular area. So a couple of nice little yellowy bits are going to look quite attractive. There, so it just gives it a bit of warmth. Don't want to go too mad. Let's put a couple there. Okay, that's just warmed up and just given a little bit of difference, which is nice. That together with the colour of this brown pastel mat actually works really quite nicely. And that's a good base layer. So I think, let's have a look at the colours. I think probably still the grey actually. Let's have a look. Let's sharpen it again. So same again, but now on the warmer side, and hopefully where it's mixing in with the warmer colours underneath, there'll be enough of a difference. But I don't know yet. I've just got to do it and see how it looks. You know, and also sort of think to myself, what's the lighter highlight? It's going to be this, isn't it? So I might need to carry on using this grey here and then pop some whites. I don't know, we will see. It's not going to go amiss anyway. This is still, even if we add some more colours later on, this will be fine. This will still look like it's supposed to be there. And again, I'm just crisscrossing and looking at all my little furry bits. You know, they're not particularly detailed. They get more detailed when you start to use a sharp bit of your pencil, if you turn your pencil as you're working. Okay, so I think I need to come into this area with some white, with some sharp white. But I've still got to be careful to make sure it's not as white as the face, so I might have to do it. And then knock it back a bit possibly. Okay. Right, so now I'm just, rather than I was, you know, was quite sort of footloose and fancy free, so to speak, with all the hairs across here, because I was creating that sort of base layer. Now I'm going to start just working on getting a few more sort of distinct hairs. Just being a little bit more determined, a little bit more sort of detailed. Letting my strokes overlap each other, and let's bring them to about there. Okay, and then I'm just going to use a small grey. So this bit under the chin, I'm aware we want to do this before we get the whiskers in. We just want to make sure that this area, because it's sitting underneath the face, it needs to be dulled back and knocked back a little bit. That's better, just so it creates a little bit of shadow. And in fact, we might just want to, so this is the 233 that I'm using. We might just want to just create a little bit more shadow here, so that it well and truly looks like this area here is sitting back before we pop the whiskery bits on. And I might just, you know, instead of using a cotton bud, you can use another pencil to define your strokes a bit more. So if you feel like this needs to be knocked back even further, or you just want to sort of create some slightly greyer hairs, you can obviously go over hairs that you've already created and kind of knock them back that way, so it's like you're blending but with another pencil. Okay, yeah, I'm pleased with that. I might still though, so obviously I've gone over the whole lot with the grey. I might now bring some of the white back in. Just going to do it gently, because we're going to press quite hard when it comes to doing the whiskers, and the whiskers definitely need to be the brighter of the two. So let's just pop a couple, highlight a couple. I mean, if necessary, once we've got the whiskers in, we can do a bit of surgical work as necessary. Okay. Now then, I am going to pop a couple of whites in here, just purely because I've got the white in my hand. And I can see that this section here, you've got some nice little lights, Always look for areas where you can get different layers of values in. And got some in here as well. Kind of comes through there. So this is just the white. I call it having a bit of quiet time with my white pencil, where I literally just will do a big section, just creating the hairs that I need to create. And if I need to knock them back or blend them with a different colour, I can do so. Just got to get the details in there to start with. And then let's see, just do a couple more. Just want a bit more of a highlight here. Okay, so this section here I can see is quite light in comparison to the reference photo. And because, as I say, because I want to get the whiskers in, we do need to knock this back a bit. I'm trying to think what would be a good colour, whether to sort of knock it back. So there's two ways of doing it really. You could use a blending stump, which is slightly better than a cotton bud because it will keep the hair that you've got there as opposed to obliterating it. Or you can use another pencil. And I'm just going to try, because I can see some sort of pinky colours in here. I'm just going to try and just pop a few little bits of pink in here. So this is the 132. And it sort of knocks it back and gives it a bit of colour at the same time. And again, just like we did there with the yellow, adding another colour all adds to the realistic effect. Okay, yeah, I'm quite liking that. Don't necessarily need to do it just over the white, you can do it on some of the other areas. You have a little play with some colours, you know. That's the great thing about doing wildlife, is that, you know, it's your little otter. And also the pink does look quite nice against this brown. So I'm just going to flick up some of these hairs. I don't like it too rigid looking. I like it to look as though the wind is catching him. So those are quite pink, those hairs that I've done, and in reality they're not really pink. So I'm just going to go back over them with the 180, which is that lovely warm yellow colour, and just see how that looks, just going back over them. It sort of knocks them back so it's almost the same colour as the background, which is quite nice because it means that they're not too in your face, but they're sort of just there. Just a couple little tweaks in there. Right, let's have a look. Might get my white pencil and just do a couple of little bits. Ooh, right. So it's just popping a few little lights back in on top. You know, it's all very much a process of putting a colour in and taking it back out again and then putting another one in and so on. And it's all those layers that create the beauty, really. Okay, so I am going to get my my stump now because I can see quite a few areas where it's sort of bubbled over the pastel mat, and I don't like that. I like it to be nice and neat. So I'm just going to use, and also we do want this whole area to be quite soft because we want the whiskers to be quite harsh in comparison and really sort of stand out. So these are going to be slightly more blended. There's something rather beautiful about the way these hairs sort of fly and cross over each other. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that as a base layer. I think what I'm going to do is crack on and do the other side. And then then I need to take a big deep breath before I do the whiskers. So yeah, we'll do the other side. Okay, so now we're going to start on this side. Pay close attention to this sort of shadowy area around here. Obviously this side of the otter is a lot warmer. It's where the light is hitting him. So I would then sort of be looking at going for a slightly warmer grey. Now I've decided to start, I've only just pulled it out, so I've not used it so far. You probably don't need it, so you could carry on with your colder grey, which we've been using, which is the 233. But the 273 just has that little bit of warmth in. If you didn't have it, you can use the 233, and then you could sort of add a little bit of 180 just to warm it up, which is that beautiful sort of yellow, warm yellow colour. And there are other colours that can warm it up a little bit as well. So, you know, you could pop anything in there, a little bit of burnt sienna if you really wanted to, as long as you kind of went back over it with the grey, and would just sort of warm it up a bit. But I'm just going to create a bit of shading around here. It's not as dark as it needs to be at the moment. I'm just working out roughly where it needs to be. Now I do want that a bit darker, so I'm going to go in with my 175, which we've been using, which is the warmer grey, the dark sepia, it's the sort of browny grey, just to sort of get this section here. Any animal that I do really, the bit under the chin is very important. It's the bit that shows that the head's not on exactly the same level as the body. Gives it that depth. And while I'm here, I'm just sort of thinking that this could do with being a bit darker. So you've got this sort of section here that's in shadow, so I'm going to use the 175 for that. And this bit here, it sort of meets up with this section here, doesn't it? And it looks a bit weird at the moment because we're going to get some little hairs to go over the top, but we really sort of want to tuck this underneath, and then we'll get the little sort of grey hairs that go over the top of it, but tuck it in first and foremost. Okay, right. So now I'm going to use the 280. So it's not that really warm 180 that we had. This is a bit darker. But for base layers, I do generally tend to go 1 or 2 shades darker than I want to go in the end, because obviously we want to create all the nice little hairs on the top. So I'm just going to look at roughly where I want to. Also got to think about where I want to finish it. You know, you've got some, probably do it to about there. There's that, and that sort of comes to here. Again, just by plotting this in, you're just telling yourself the direction of the fur and gives you a little map to follow. It's a bit like your initial outline gives you a map. This is the next stage, you're just following on from that. You're continuing to give yourself a little map to work with. So I'm using this as a depth colour, which is the bit between the furs on this side. It's not quite as dark as we did on the other side, but that's because there's the light hitting it. So let's have a look. So this is the really warm side. You've got some quite dark bits in here. I might swap to the 177, which is the nice dark brown. And just get a couple of dark bits in here. I'm not too worried about what I'm doing here because it's all going to get covered with other hair in a minute. But it's just to get a feeling for how it's sitting. And actually, might go even darker and just use the 175 here. So it's got a bit more grey in it because it's not quite as warm as I've made it here. You've got quite a few sort of distinct darker bits here. I'm going to go to about there. You know, the dark that's in between the fur here is much darker than what you can see up here because as it hits the light you don't see the darkness as much. And I might even do a bit of negative painting, go in between, just darken up some of the in-betweeny bits here. That's, I did like the sort of the softness that I had before. So I might then go back in with my nice grey just over the top and do a couple of little strokes that sit over those darker bits that I've just done. Because I liked the softness, but I also like to get a little bit of depth there. So this is just the 270, the grey. Constantly tweaking, remember, constantly looking at your reference and looking at your, don't just look at your reference either. I know some people will potentially follow the reference slavishly, and that's good, certainly, for a while. But also you've got to look at what your painting is like towards the end. Start to think about your painting as a separate entity, really. What makes it look good in its own right. That's not necessarily completely following the photograph. And this little otter's got quite a few differences from the photo, but I think he stands up in his own right, hopefully. Okay, so I think I'm happy with just the couple of lines, the sort of the darker lines there. I think I'm now going to use, this section here is quite warm, so I'm using the 103. I've not got much left of it. I could treat myself to a new one, couldn't I? But just to sort of start getting some light in here straight away, rather than making it too dark and then having to put too much on top. So I'm basically just filling it in. I'm colouring it in at the moment. Yes, I'm doing it in the direction of the fur. Yes, I'm sort of looking at my reference, but the main aim of this early on is just to fill the tooth through it. Not fill it completely, but Yeah, it's just to get some layers done. And in here. And again, you're still viewing it as a map. You know, you're working out where the warm and the light colours are. You're working out where the really sort of dark patches in between the furs are. All those subtle differences do make a real difference. And you've got a really nice light area here, so I'm going to switch to them, apart from anything else, because my hands are hurting from that really small pencil. I'm going to go back into my white, and I'm going to really pop in these whites. Yeah, they really come up and over, don't they? Look at those lovely little flicks of hair. Beautiful. Love it. Comes right up to here, down over here, and I've got this nice little light bit here. Again, I'm just playing with the white pencil at the moment. I just instinctively move to other areas of the portrait when I've got one colour in my hand. It's because I've seen that particular colour somewhere else. So now I'm going to start bringing some of the white in here, because it's quite white in this section as opposed to cream. And I'm going to go over the little bits of pastel matte that don't have the dark in between. I don't want to obliterate the dark really. To some extent you'll go over it a little bit. But try and keep the dark bits. Fill in the bits that are still brown from the pastel matte. I used to hate doing fur. I thought, how on earth am I ever going to do it? You know, it used to be my absolute favourite to do all the eyes and the nose and the collars and all of that, and absolutely used to hate fur, but I'm actually quite enjoying it now, especially interesting fur like this. It's got lots of different sort of textures and layers to it. Mind you, they all do, to be fair. I'm sort of... Now I train myself to spend even more time on the area beneath the head of an animal, because in the past I've had a tendency to do that to absolute perfection and then be a lot quicker on the bottom layer because I'm in a hurry to finish it and call it done. Now I've sort of trained myself to create even more importance around that. To make it look sort of professional. So can you see now how it's really sort of building up? And I'm starting to ad-lib a little bit more. I'm looking at the reference photos slightly less, still looking at it, but slightly less. I'm now thinking, right, what looks good? And also thinking about where I'm going to finish it off, where my signature's going to be. I might bring this down a little bit and then chop it off to there, or I might finish it off a little bit sort of looser towards the end. I'm not sure yet. Okay. I was having quite a good time there, I was enjoying that. So I'm going to use my paper stump again, and I'm just trying to clean it a bit, and just very gently, don't move it around too much, just very gently press it in so that you can't see all the little bubbles as it glides over the surface. So you're more or less, by using this, you're keeping everything in position, but you're sort of cementing it further, if you like. You're making it look like it's actually deep down, it's not sort of sitting on the surface. And we can do some peak highlights that sit on the surface. Just use a fresh bit of that. I don't know if you're supposed to, how you're supposed to sort of clean these. I suppose just wipe them on my jeans. So it's feeling like it's got a few layers now. So I think what we're missing on this side is that beautiful yellow that we had. I just want to get a bit of that in. That's the 180, because it's a really nice warm colour. And you can even use it as a bit of a glaze. So all that white that you've just created, you're sort of glazing over like you would if you were doing a painting using thin transparent glazes. No reason to say you can't do it with this as well. Because I'm just aware that this is the section where the light is hitting it, and if it's a particularly sunny day, it's going to have a beautiful warm glow. Just giving a bit of a warm glow there. And here as well. Okay, so I've given it that warm glow. Let's just I'm just going over it now. I'm going to pop some lights over the top. I'm just cementing this all in before I come back with my white. Again, it's all about layering. Okay, right. So obviously this section here is quite a lot lighter, but we've got that beautiful warmth in now. Now we can start to just be a little bit more delicate and just pop some nice lights in. And you get some sort of pockets of hairs that are all sitting there where you can't really see much in the way of little bits in between, if that makes sense. So up here, this is really quite light. And then obviously, you have to think about what looks good as well. I mean, the photograph isn't necessarily as true a representation as you can make it on the canvas, because the photograph lies as well in a little bit. It depends. The exposure might have been wrong. It might have just been showing it in a different light. You can really go to town, and it's not like you're making things up. You can show some other parts of, for instance, the otter that, you can look at different references. Why not? This is, I'm just popping some white in here because I can see kind of goes to about there. And then just popping, don't obliterate all the good work you've just done, but equally just think of it as a nice little layer on top. Okay. And you can see the way I'm crisscrossing these hairs, and I'm not going too far up there because obviously this is the bit that sits underneath the chin. And don't feel you have to do it as quickly as I have here. You know, take your time and do each individual hair, you know, with that you can roll the pencil around in your hand if you want to. And I do love flicking hairs over initial hairs that are already there, you know, so you've got some that are like completely straight down here, so I'll flick some slightly to the right, slightly to the left. You know, if the wind's blowing, it's not going to be all absolutely dead straight, is it? And there's a couple of sort of shorter hairs here. You know, look at the length of the hair, they're not all the same. A couple of little shorter hairy bits. Okay. Okay, just going to sharpen that again. I've got quite a lot of sort of dark here. I think I need to do a bit more light. So let's just take that out the way. And then some of them are a little bit shorter here, the furry bits. It's, you know, the coats have layers. You can very often have some sort of longer hairs underneath and shorter hairs on top and so on. Okay. Right, I'm now just using my finger because we are getting close to the point where we've done as much as we can do before we start putting whiskers on. I'm just putting off the moment. And I want everything that I've just done to stay there. I don't want to move it around, but I don't want it to be too stark either. I've noticed here as well. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'm sure there's going to be some last minute tweaks, and obviously we've got to do the whiskers, but I'm going to go and have a cup of tea and take a deep breath and then come back. Okay, so it's almost time to do it. Just before I do, I've noticed that there's some areas here, already breaking the nice point that I had. There's some areas here that could just do with lifting a little bit, so I'm just going in with the white and just popping those in just before we start to get the whiskers in. I just want to get this really, get a couple of really nice white bits just on this section here. here and here, where it's at its lightest. And maybe even a few more here. I sort of pressed all the hairs in, and by so doing made it a little bit darker than perhaps it needs to be. So it's like a top layer in white here, and really the highlights sort of go to about there before it starts going darker. Okay, now one thing you'll notice when I've been doing that, obviously I've been working quite quickly, can you see how all of these little hairs, they don't look like they belong to the body because they're just sitting on the surface. A good little tip is just to press those back in, and then it makes them appear as if they're coming out from the body rather than just sitting on top. So any little areas like that, just kind of stroke them in. Just using this paper stump just to... Okay, right, it's time to sharpen the white pencil. That's typical. Maybe it's not time to sharpen the white pencil. Okay, right. So there are a couple of little areas that I know need tweaking, sort of around this section. But until I get the whiskers in, I just need to get the whiskers in first, and then I can start levelling up with it. Okay, so I'm just going to go, it's going to be brave. So I'm using a very sharp white pencil. I'm doing firm, but not too firm pressure. I'm just going to, scary stuff. And again, just like we said before, that doesn't look like it's coming out of the body, so you just hide the base of it in. Okay. Now you can go over it if you want to make it even whiter. It doesn't have to be exactly the same as the reference. It's a good place to sort of start, but so I'm just, as I say, it's a firm pressure and then flicking it off at the end. And we've got some that kind of come here. This is the scary bit because it goes over the background. And there's part of his whisker actually at the top here that kind of bends, but I'm not going to let this one bend. So it looks a bit unbelievable otherwise. Right, it might be time to sharpen the pencil again. Don't get so carried away that you forget to sharpen it. Now obviously when we're working on the otter as a whole, we're doing lots and lots and lots of layers, and then it comes time to do the whiskers and we're seeming to just sort of do one. So what I would do, when you've got a really sharp pencil again, go back over what you just did, just to sort of cement it in. When you're cementing in as opposed to doing the initial whisker, you might just need to be a little bit softer with it. Otherwise you might end up going over the line, you know, over a different section. Allow it to taper off as well, because that looks quite nice. And then we've got a few like little loose hairs there. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. Actually, I've just got one big, do a couple that sort of look different sizes. And again, that last little whisker that I did there doesn't look like it actually comes out of the body, so just hide the base of it. That's better. Okay, let's go the other side. So I'm going to use the white pencil slightly to one side, and I'm going to go like that. It's by far and away the most nerve-wracking part. But just remember, it doesn't have to be exactly the same as the reference photo, just roughly. Okay, so I'm just going to colour that in a bit, taper it off. And again, smooth in the little bases. Okay, I just go back over, just get that a little bit brighter until I soften my voice. And I'm just gliding through, sort of pushing and okay. And here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, I've gone a bit quiet. I think you'll understand if you come to do it. It's making sure that the whiskers are coming out from the area where the whiskers come out from. It's also a help. And then we've got some. So just on this section here, got a couple. Don't want this to sit out too much. Let's just nice thin lines in some places. Some are fatter than others. Let's pop some there as well. Okay, I don't want to go too mad with it. The areas that I do want to work on a bit more are the areas where it's, because obviously it's, you're trying to sort of cut through fur here. But equally, you don't want them to stand out too much. Let's just see what tapping them in does. Just softening the look of them. Okay. Right. So I think, just Trying to have a look. Let's have a few more. Coming down that way. And we must have a few more this side, even if we can't necessarily see it. So the whiskers are quite thick. What you can do, in some sections, you can use your little paper stump to just knock them back a little bit so they're not quite as stark. So they're a bit more whimsical. And in some of the areas where they're a bit thicker, if you do some other little ones in between, it just looks like a few have gathered together. That's better. The other thing you can do, if you don't like some of the thickness, you can just dull it back down with the 177 there. But you know, he does have quite distinct whiskers, and it does add to his character. Okay. Whew, that was nerve-wracking. So I'm just going over, I'm thinning out some of the whiskers. That's a bit too obvious, so I'm just going to correct that mistake with a grey. Just go over all of that. Sharpen my white again. And I'm going to hide that bit. I'm doing something like that. And that sort of just tucks it away. I'm aware I've not done quite as many whiskers this time. I think it's probably because it doesn't show as much. So you can just pop a couple in there. But other than that, I think our little Oliver is done. Okay, so he's more or less finished, but we're just coming back to do a couple little tweaks because that's what I do. I can just looking for some peak highlights. So I've just got the white in my hand at the moment, and I can just see a couple of little peak highlights that we need to pop in. Just using my left hand here, it's a bit dodgy. And I just want some of these whiskers here to just stand out a bit more, so I'm just going over them, having just sort of knocked them back, going back over them again. Firm pressure. Can you hear me sort of scraping through, really? Okay, where else did I see a little tweak that I needed to do? A couple of little bits. Might want to put a bit of a highlight here. I'm sure that the sun's hitting a bit of that fur. Okay, and I think we've got a couple of little highlights on here that we're missing, some little furry bits. And of course, as I said earlier in the video, you know, a lot of pastel has been flying around and dulled a few sections, so we might just need to go back over some areas. A couple of little sections here where I just want it a little bit brighter. There's all sorts of things you can do to different pastel pencils that you can use to make it brighter, and I will do those on some videos soon, but I just wanted to use Faber-Castell for now because they are a workhorse of mine, and I think if you can only afford to get one set, then you're not going to do too badly with getting the Faber-Castell. I am planning to do more videos and some Zoom classes and some more online stuff. If you're watching this on YouTube, then please do click the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it enables me to be able to bring you more content. Also sign up for my newsletter. So go onto my website, which is creationsbychloe.co.uk. And I'm going to be sending out sort of information on any Zoom classes, any upcoming tutorials. I don't know how I'm going to work it yet, but just keep in touch with me. And then I can hopefully bring you more content. It's all good fun. Look at him, isn't he cute? Ah, we've got a nice little... And you know, this is an important part of it, just towards the end, is just a couple of little tweaks can make all the difference. Sharpening my white pencil again, and I'm just looking. In little areas where I think that the light is going to be hitting the surface. Okay, I think, famous last words, I think our little Ollie is finished. Should we sign him? Okay, let's sign him. Now then, what colour do I want? I think brown's quite a nice colour. It's not too stark and in your face. And then, that's broken that. See if this one's working. I managed to break both of them. It's very clever of me. At some stage I will do a video on sharpening pastel pencils and go through a range of sharpeners that I use. That's for another day. But no, overall I'm very, very happy with our little Ollie. I think he's very cute. I think he's got a lot of personality and a slightly grumpy look. So I'm going to sign him. Everyone's signature is obviously different. I'm just going to... Usually I wait to mount them before I sign so that I know exactly where the mount is going to sit, but I think that's where I'm going to position that. Worst case scenario, if I'm unhappy at some stage, I mean I'm not, this is obviously just a little sample one, but you know, you can always put a background in. You know, if you make a mess on the background somewhere, you can pop a little background in. Obviously it's much better to get the background done first rather than try and do it retrospectively, but it can be done and has been done. This is just a putty eraser that I'm using just to get a few of the little marks off, and I'm going to just take a little bit of the signature off just to sort of knock it back a bit. So it's kind of there. And then just some of the little loose bits of pastel mat that's around there, which I might go over that signature again. Very gently. There we go. There he is. There's Ollie finished.